Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor has spent over 80 years proving that the most dangerous supervillain doesn't need powers, just money, ego, and absolute certainty that he's the smartest person in any room. Superman's greatest enemy debuted in Action Comics Hag 23 in 1940, created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. The original version was a mad scientist with a full head of red hair, more interested in death rays than corporate takeovers. But the character evolved across decades into something far more interesting. A billionaire who genuinely believes he's humanity's savior and that Superman is the actual threat to human potential. The modern Lex Luthor runs LexCorp, a multinational conglomerate with interests in technology, defense, media, and real estate. His net worth fluctuates depending on the writer, but estimates place him somewhere between $75 billion and functionally unlimited. He's been president of the United States. He's worn power armor capable of fighting Superman directly. He's manipulated heroes and governments alike through a combination of wealth, intelligence, and complete absence of moral restraint. What makes Luthor uniquely evil among billionaire villains is his self-justification. He doesn't see himself as a villain at all. In his worldview, Superman's existence makes humanity complacent. Why develop technology when an alien god will save you? Why push human achievement when Kryptonian genetics render effort meaningless? Luthor believes he's fighting for human independence against an extraterrestrial threat that happens to wear a cape and smile. And here's what makes him more dangerous than villains with obviously insane goals. His argument almost makes sense. Superman does make humanity dependent. The presence of an invulnerable alien who can solve any problem does raise questions about human agency. If you remove the murders and the genocide attempts, Luthor sounds like a TED Talk about technological dependency. He's wrong, but he's wrong in ways that require actual argument to refute. The business empire makes his villainy possible in ways other rogues can't match. When Luthor wants someone dead, he doesn't hire assassins. He acquires their employer, restructures the company, and eliminates their position. When he wants technology, he doesn't steal it, he patents something better, then litigates competitors into bankruptcy. The legal system becomes a weapon as dangerous as any death ray. His corporate infrastructure also provides something other villains lack: legitimacy. When Luthor holds a press conference, cameras show up. When he endorses political candidates, they win elections. When he claims Superman is a threat, significant portions of the public believe him. The billions buy credibility, and credibility is more powerful than any weapon. Gene Hackman, Kevin Spacey, and Jesse Eisenberg have all played Luthor on screen with varying success. Michael Rosenbaum's 7-season portrayal on Smallville remains definitive for many fans, a slow corruption from troubled friend to inevitable enemy. But every version shares the core truth: Lex Luthor is what happens when unlimited resources meet unlimited ego and zero accountability. Writers have periodically tried to redeem him. During Blackest Night, he briefly became an Orange Lantern. In some continuities, he's fought alongside the Justice League. But the redemptions never stick, because Luthor's ego won't permit genuine heroism. He can't save the world if it means admitting Superman was right. The pettiness undermines the philosophy every time. 80 years of evolution, and Lex Luthor still defines what it means to fight gods with money. He's the template against which all billionaire supervillains are measured, and none of them have surpassed him yet. Norman Osborn built a billion-dollar corporation, developed a super soldier serum, tested it on himself when the board tried to remove him, and emerged as something that couldn't decide whether it was a businessman or a monster. The Green Goblin debuted in the Amazing Spider-Man #14 in 1964, created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. But the Norman Osborn underneath the mask wasn't revealed until 2 years later in issues #39 and #40, a deliberate mystery that allowed readers to speculate about which of Spider-Man's enemies might be the cackling figure on the glider. When the mask came off, the reveal was devastating. Norman Osborn was Harry Osborn's father, a respected industrialist, a pillar of the business community. The Green Goblin wasn't some random lunatic. He was the embodiment of corporate ambition twisted into psychosis. Oscorp Industries manufactures everything from pharmaceuticals to military technology. Norman built the company through ruthless acquisition and questionable ethics, long before the Goblin serum enhanced his worst impulses. The formula gave him superhuman strength, agility, and intelligence. It also shattered whatever moral boundaries remained. The Green Goblin is Norman Osborn, with the restraint removed, pure id in a Halloween costume. What makes Norman uniquely terrifying is the toggle between identities. He can chair a board meeting at 9 a.m. and murder a busload of civilians by noon. The wealth provides cover, the psychosis provides purpose. When Spider-Man fights the Green Goblin, he's fighting a Fortune 500 CEO with superhuman abilities, unlimited resources, and absolutely no concern for collateral damage. The death of Gwen Stacy in Amazing Spider-Man #121 cemented Norman as Spider-Man's most personal enemy. He didn't just fight Peter Parker. He destroyed Peter's life, murdered his girlfriend, and did it specifically because he knew it would cause maximum pain. The Goblin's evil is intimate in ways other villains can't match. In the comics, Norman's villainy extended far beyond the Green Goblin persona. During the Dark Reign storyline, he led his own team of Avengers, villains dressed as heroes, and ran HAMER, a replacement for SHIELD. He had legitimate governmental authority to hunt heroes while secretly orchestrating chaos. The businessman had become a political figure, and the political figure used his power to institutionalize evil. The tragedy of the Osborn family compounds across generations. Harry Osborn, Norman's son and Peter Parker's best friend, eventually becomes a Green Goblin himself. The cycle of wealth, madness, and destruction passes father to son. Oscorp's billions create new monsters in every generation, and Spider-Man keeps fighting the same battle against different faces, wearing the same mask. Willem Dafoe's portrayal across 4 films, from 2002's Spider-Man through No Way Home, defined the character for a generation. His unhinged performance, switching between boardroom Norman and cackling Goblin mid-sentence, captured the duality that makes the character work. The ability to toggle between personas means Norman is never fully defeated. You can beat the Goblin, but Norman Osborn just returns to his boardroom and starts planning the next attack. The money came first, the madness followed, and by the time anyone noticed the difference, it was already too late. Wilson Fisk controls more of New York City than any elected official, and he built that empire by being willing to do what legitimate businessmen won't. The Kingpin debuted in The Amazing Spider-Man #50 in 1967, created by Stan Lee and John Romita Sr. Originally a Spider-Man villain, he migrated to Daredevil's Rogues Gallery and found his perfect nemesis, a blind lawyer trying to save Hell's Kitchen from the crime lord who owns it. Fisk's billions come from crime, drug trafficking, extortion, murder for hire, human trafficking, and legitimate businesses used to launder the proceeds. He's not a tech billionaire or an industrialist. He's what happens when organized crime achieves corporate scale. The Kingpin runs his empire like a Fortune 500 company, with org charts, performance reviews, and hostile takeovers that involve actual hostility. What separates Fisk from common criminals is his vision. He doesn't want money for yachts and mansions. He wants to reshape cities according to his design. In the comics, he's demolished neighborhoods to build luxury developments. In Netflix's Daredevil, Vincent D'Onofrio's Fisk orchestrates a bombing campaign to devalue real estate he wants to acquire. The crime funds the ambition justifies the crime. The physical presence reinforces the menace. Fisk stands around 6'7" and weighs over 450 pounds, almost entirely muscle despite his appearance. He's beaten Daredevil, Spider-Man, and Captain America in hand-to-hand combat. The suit and the boardroom manner create expectations of a soft businessman. The reality is a man who can crush skulls with his bare hands and has done so repeatedly. D'Onofrio's portrayal across Daredevil and subsequent Marvel projects made Fisk genuinely terrifying in ways the comics sometimes struggled to achieve. His Kingpin is a wounded child in a giant's body, capable of genuine love and absolutely monstrous violence. The scene where he beats a man to death with a car door, then calmly returns to his dinner date, captures the character perfectly. That combination of tenderness and brutality makes him unpredictable in ways that pure villains never achieve. The Kingpin's most insidious quality is his patience. He doesn't need to defeat Daredevil in combat. He needs to outlast him. Every time Matt Murdock builds a case, Fisk finds a way to have it dismissed. Every time Spider-Man stops a shipment, Fisk has 10 more moving through different ports. The individual battles don't matter, because Fisk is fighting a war of attrition against the entire concept of justice. His legitimate businesses provide perfect cover. Fisk owns construction companies, real estate developments, media outlets, and charitable foundations. Investigating him means investigating dozens of apparently separate entities, each with its own lawyers, its own accountants, its own layers of protection. By the time anyone connects the dots, the evidence has been destroyed and the witnesses have disappeared. You can't punch your way through corruption. And Fisk has been corrupting New York for decades. That's his true evil. He's not fighting heroes. He's fighting the possibility that heroism could ever be enough. When Fisk controls a city, heroes can win battles while losing the war. They save the victim in front of them, while Fisk's influence ensures 100 more victims tomorrow. Daredevil can punch criminals all night, but he can't punch the zoning board that just approved Fisk's latest development. Spider-Man can stop a mugging, but he can't stop the systemic poverty Fisk's operations create. The Kingpin represents something terrifying about wealth at scale. It doesn't need to win fights. It just needs to outlast the people who do. Dr. Doom, Victor Von Doom, rules an entire country, which means his resources aren't measured in billions, but in the GDP of a European nation-state with no oversight and absolute obedience. Dr. Doom debuted in Fantastic Four #5 in 1962, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. He was intended as a one-off villain. Instead, he became Marvel's most compelling antagonist, a scientific genius, a master sorcerer, and the absolute monarch of Latveria, a fictional Eastern European nation he's ruled for decades through a combination of technological superiority and genuine popularity among his subjects. The Doom paradox is that he's actually a good ruler. Latveria has no poverty, no crime, universal health care, and complete employment. Citizens genuinely love their monarch. The country functions as a utopia by most measurable standards. Doom achieved what most governments can't, and he did it through totalitarian control, robotic enforcement, and the elimination of all dissent. His resources exceed conventional billionaires because nations have capabilities individuals don't. Doom commands armies. He conducts diplomatic relations. He has embassies that provide legal immunity for whatever operations he wants to run on foreign soil. When Doom attacks the Fantastic Four, he does so with the resources of a country behind him and the legal protections of a head of state. The scientific achievements would make him wealthy even without Latveria. Doom's armor rivals Iron Man's technology. His time machines actually work. His robots, the Doombots that serve as both army and decoys, represent manufacturing capabilities beyond most nations. He's traded knowledge with cosmic entities and held his own against literal gods. What makes Doom uniquely evil is his certainty that only he can save humanity. He's seen the future through time travel and believes that every timeline where he doesn't rule ends in catastrophe. His conquest isn't ego, it's destiny. Every hero who opposes him is, in his mind, dooming humanity to destruction out of petty attachment to freedom. His relationship with Reed Richards transforms scientific rivalry into existential conflict. They were classmates in university. Doom blames Reed for the accident that scarred his face. Whether fairly or not depends on the telling. Every subsequent conflict contains that original wound, the belief that Reed's interference cost Victor his perfection, and that perfection must be reclaimed at any cost. The magic makes Doom unique among billionaire villains. He's not just a scientist with resources. He's a sorcerer who's bargained with demons, traveled through time, and mastered mystical arts that most heroes can't comprehend. The combination of technology and magic means conventional countermeasures rarely work. How do you fight someone who can attack you with missiles and curses simultaneously? His mother's soul provides rare emotional depth. Cynthia Von Doom was a witch whose soul was claimed by Mephisto. Victor has spent his entire adult life trying to free her from hell. Every year, he's allowed one attempt. Every year, he fails. The armor, the conquest, the endless scheming. Some interpretations suggest it's all in service of accumulating enough power to finally defeat the devil and save his mother. He's been God. During Secret Wars, Doom stole the power of the Beyonders and recreated reality in his image. He ruled the entire multiverse. And even then, he wasn't satisfied. That's Dr. Doom, a villain whose ambitions make planetary conquest feel like a stepping stone. The Fantastic Four have defeated Doom hundreds of times. It doesn't matter. Latveria remains his. The Doombots keep manufacturing. The plans keep developing. Doom treats defeats as temporary setbacks in a campaign he's been waging for decades and intends to wage for centuries more. That patience, combined with resources no other villain can match, makes him perhaps the most dangerous name on this list. Luthor fights one alien. Fisk controls one city. Osborn terrorizes one hero. Dr. Doom wants everything, and he has the power, the intellect, and the infrastructure to keep trying until he gets it. Obadiah Stane waited decades to betray Tony Stark, and when the moment came, he'd already arranged to have him killed before the board meeting ended. The Ironmonger debuted in Iron Man #163 in 1982, created by Dennis O'Neil and Luke McDonnell. In the comics, he was a rival industrialist who systematically dismantled Tony Stark's life through corporate manipulation before finally confronting him in powered armor. But Jeff Bridges' portrayal in 2008's Iron Man transformed him into something more intimate, the father figure who'd been planning patricide all along. The Me-You version of Stane had been running Stark Industries since Howard Stark's death. He'd mentored Tony, protected the company during Tony's reckless years, and positioned himself as the responsible adult, keeping everything functional. When Tony announced he was shutting down weapons manufacturing, Stane saw decades of patience about to be wasted and decided the time for patience was over. His solution was elegant in its brutality. He'd already arranged Tony's kidnapping in Afghanistan. The event that created Iron Man was actually an assassination attempt that Stane had commissioned. When that failed, he locked Tony out of the company, stole his arc reactor technology, and built a larger, more powerful suit to eliminate the competition personally. What makes Stane's evil particularly resonant is its corporate familiarity. He's not a cackling supervillain. He's the mentor who takes credit for your work, the executive who smiles while arranging your termination, the father figure whose love was always conditional on your usefulness. His betrayal doesn't feel like comic book villainy. It feels like something that happens in boardrooms every day, just with fewer explosions. The Ironmonger suit represents Stane's philosophy made metal. It's bigger than Tony's armor, more heavily armed, designed for military application rather than the heroism Tony chose. When Stane tells Tony that just because he had an idea doesn't mean it belongs to him, he's articulating every corporate vampire's worldview. Individual genius exists to be exploited by people with more power. Bridges played Stane with avuncular menace, the bald head and friendly demeanor making his violence more shocking. The scene where he paralyzes Tony with a sonic device, removes his arc reactor, and leaves him to die while explaining exactly why he's doing it, remains one of the MQ's most uncomfortable moments. There's no ranting, no supervillain monologue about world domination, just a businessman explaining a hostile takeover to the person he's eliminating. Stane died in the first Iron Man film, but his legacy shaped everything that followed. He proved that Tony's greatest enemies wouldn't come from foreign battlefields. They'd come from the people he trusted most. The billionaire villain as betrayer, the father figure as murderer. Obadiah Stane was always evil. He was just patient enough to wait for the right moment. Ra's al Ghul has been alive for over 600 years, which means he's had centuries to accumulate wealth, influence, and absolute conviction that humanity needs to be cold for the planet to survive. The Demon's Head debuted in Batman #232 in 1971, created by Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams. Unlike most Batman villains who emerge from Gotham streets, Ra's operates globally. His organization, the League of Assassins, has tendrils in every government, every corporation, every military. The resources at his disposal exceed what any individual fortune could provide, because he's been building infrastructure since before the Industrial Revolution. The Lazarus Pits make Ra's functionally immortal. These mystical pools restore life and youth at the cost of temporary madness and, according to some interpretations, pieces of the user's soul. Ra's has died and been resurrected dozens of times. His plans operate on timescales that mortal billionaires can't comprehend. He's not thinking about quarterly earnings. He's thinking about centuries. His philosophy is environmental extremism taken to genocidal conclusion. Ra's believes humanity is a disease destroying the planet. His solution isn't recycling programs or carbon taxes. It's eliminating most of the human population through plagues, economic collapse, or whatever mechanism achieves the necessary reduction. The survivors would live in harmony with nature under his benevolent guidance. What makes Ra's uniquely dangerous is that he's not entirely wrong about the problems. Climate change is real. Resource depletion is accelerating. Ecosystems are collapsing. Ra's has identified genuine crises. He's just concluded that the solution is mass murder rather than collective action. His evil is idealism without restraint, environmentalism as justification for apocalypse. He genuinely respects Batman, which makes their relationship stranger than most hero-villain dynamics. Ra's calls Bruce detective as a term of honor. He's repeatedly offered to make Batman his heir, to marry him to his daughter Talia, to grant him immortality and partnership in reshaping the world. Batman refuses, but the offers are sincere. Ra's recognizes a worthy opponent and would genuinely prefer alliance to conflict. The immortality creates planning capabilities no other villain can match. Ra's has manipulated world events for centuries. He's toppled governments, started wars, ended dynasties. The League of Assassins has trained warriors across generations, including, in many continuities, Bruce Wayne himself. Batman's skills came from the man who wants to destroy everything Batman protects. Liam Neeson's portrayal in Batman Begins adapted Ra's for the Nolan trilogy, presenting him as the man who trained Bruce Wayne before revealing his true plan to destroy Gotham as a symbol of civilization's corruption. The film made Ra's more sympathetic than some comic versions, an extremist with understandable grievances rather than a simple madman. But sympathetic motivations don't excuse genocide. Ra's al Ghul wants to save the Earth by murdering billions. His wealth, his immortality, his army of assassins, all tools in service of an extinction event he considers mercy. He's been planning the apocalypse since before most nations existed. And unlike every other villain on this list, he has the patience to wait another 600 years if necessary. Subscribe for more content like this.